Paul Pierce was a 10-time NBA All-Star, an NBA champion, the 2008 NBA Finals MVP. He will be a Hall of Famer, and he should be remembered as one of the toughest players to ever play the game of basketball. Because what you might not know is that as a young player, Pierce was stabbed 11 times and almost died just 1 month before the 2001 basketball season, and still willed himself to play in all 82 games that year. So what's up, guys? Mike here, and yes, today's story is crazy. We're first going to take a look at Paul Pierce's early life and find out just how he became so tough. Then we're going to travel back in time and look at the night that the stabbing took place. Trust me, this story is incredible, but before we get to that, I just want to say we're about to hit 1.2 million subscribers. That is absolutely insane. So as a thank you, I am going to do another Instagram giveaway. As soon as we hit 1.2 million subscribers, I'm going to give away a pair of any shoes you want to 3 of you guys. With a limit of $200, I think that's reasonable. So subscribe if you're new, and make sure to go follow my Instagram at Mike Korzemba so that you can join the giveaway. Link to my Instagram will also be down below. All you have to do is like the giveaway post and comment what shoe you want to enter. I'm really excited to do another giveaway for you guys, and I'm also excited to tell you this story, so let's get into it. We all remember the wheelchair. We all remember Game 1 of the 2008 NBA Finals, where Paul Pierce contests a shot and falls down with apparently a very serious injury. He would have to use a wheelchair to leave the game, but then, just minutes later, Pierce remarkably recovered and helped lead the Celtics to a Game 1 victory. This could have gone down as one of the best injury comebacks we've ever seen, only nobody really believed it. So we also all know the jokes. We know that some people believe the reason Pierce went down was that he really had to go, number 2? Yeah, this single event has kind of damaged Paul Pierce's reputation in many people's eyes. But what you don't know is that Paul Pierce is one of the toughest basketball players that has ever lived, and his life story proves that. Born in Oakland and growing up in Inglewood, California, both extremely rough areas, Pierce was always surrounded by gangs. A life of crime was always right there in his reach, but he resisted. He was too good for that. He knew he wanted to do bigger things. And so, as a child, he showed his toughness right there. He watched as some of his peers slipped into the shadows while he chose a life of hard work. And trust me, it took a lot of hard work for Paul to become the NBA superstar we know him as today. As a young high school player, he was up every day at 5 a.m. practicing his game relentlessly, willing himself to become a great player. Unlike a lot of NBA superstars we know, Paul was not an early high school phenom. In fact, he barely made his varsity team as a sophomore. But he would grow, his game would take off, and eventually, after a very successful run at Kansas, Paul Pierce would become the face of the Boston Celtics. So with that quick story of a young Paul Pierce's life, let's go ahead and talk about the stabbing. Paul Pierce had no way of knowing that on the night of September 25th, 2000, his life was going to change forever. The season was still a month away, and he was young, just 22 years old at the time, so he decided to have some fun. He would go out to a Boston nightclub called the Buzz Club, and at first, it seemed like just another normal night. Paul was socializing with people, he was hitting on some girls, he was doing the normal things a young NBA player does. Unfortunately, as the night went on, things would become anything but normal. Because watching Paul interact with other people that night, 3 guys began to take offense with Paul's actions. Now, I'm not saying Pierce was doing anything wrong. We'll get to the reasoning as to why these guys were mad later in this video. Just know though, these guys did not like Paul Pierce. And so one of them, a man by the name of Anthony Hurston, decided to escalate the situation, if you can even call it a situation, because Paul was not fighting with them. Anyway, according to different reports, Hurston either punched Paul in the back of the head or hit him in the back of the head with a bottle. Whatever the case, Pierce ended up falling to the ground after a complete cheap shot. From there, witnesses said that the 2 other men, William Ragland and Trevor Watson joined in and began to attack Pierce when he was helpless on the ground. This was serious, as Ragland pulled out a knife and stabbed Paul 11 times, one stab going 7 inches deep. These wounds would include stabs to the back, neck, and face, and when it was all over, Paul Pierce was left lying in a pool of his own blood. Paul remembers thinking,
it just happened so fast, and I looked up and my clothes were ripped. I had blood coming down my face. That's the first thing I remember, blood coming down my face, and I'm like wiping it, and I'm like, I'm seriously hurt.
Immediately, friends of Paul, including teammate Tony Battie, picked him up and threw him in Battie's car. They would rush him to the hospital, and it was there that Pierce looked a surgeon in the eye and desperately asked him,
I just was just like, you know, asking them, am I gonna live? Am I gonna live?
This was a real concern because Pierce had lost that much blood, but he remembers thinking it was frantic. We didn't know how badly injured he was at the time. I guess it was probably better not knowing. Luckily though, Paul Pierce would not die, but he would suffer a collapsed lung that would require lung surgery to fix. This was, in Paul's own words, a miracle because one of the stabs was just an inch or two away from his heart. He was blessed just to be alive, but he was always also a fighter. So once he knew that his life was safe, he turned his attention to basketball. Remember, the man had been stabbed 11 times and the NBA season was going to start in just over 1 month. Nobody expected Pierce to play in the first game of that season. Nobody knew how long it would take to recover from 11 stab wounds. And when looking back at all of this, I've just gotta say it's also clear that nobody knew just how tough of a man Paul Pierce is. Remarkably, Paul would leave the hospital just 3 days later and would say, I can't wait to get back out on a basketball court. And that's just what he did, which to those who knew him was really no surprise, because Paul Pierce was born in a city that forced you to be tough to survive, so that's all he knew. And when November 1st rolled around and the Celtics had their first game, Paul Pierce was on the court playing for his team just over a month after he had almost died. What's even crazier is that this 2001 season was an absolute breakout season for Pierce. He would play in all 82 games and would average 25.3 points and 6.4 rebounds a game in just his 3rd year, establishing himself as one of the game's bright young stars. And as we all know, Pierce would continue his career in Boston and become a Celtic legend, eventually winning a championship for the city in 2008. By the way, in case you were wondering what happened to the people who attacked Paul, well, originally people thought Pierce had actually tried to step in and break up a fight at the club, and that's why he was hurt. But that was simply not the case, because when this went to trial, Paul testified on the stand that he had been set up by the 3 attackers and that William Ragland, Trevor Watson, and Anthony Hurston attacked him because he was talking to and getting close to a girl that was one of their family members. Because he did the actual stabbing, Ragland was given 7 to 10 years in prison on top of the 21 to 25 year sentence he was already serving for firing a gun into a crowd of people and killing a man when he was 14. What a great guy. Watson was also given 1 year for hitting and kicking Pierce during the attack, and Hurston got off with no time. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Pretty crazy, right? I mean, he was stabbed 11 times and still played 82 games. Why does that not get talked about more? Anyway, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me. I want you to win a free pair of shoes, so again, just go follow at Mike Korzemba. And with that said, to everyone who's already subscribed, to everyone who's already following me on Instagram, thank you so much for supporting me. You know you are awesome. We all know you're awesome. And as always, have an awesome day, and cue that music.